Now, for more on this story, let's cross live to our correspondent, Oliver Farry. He's standing by for us. Oliver, just where does this mass resignation leave the Legislative Council today, I suppose?
Well, after the resignation of the 15, combined with the 4 colleagues who were disqualified earlier on in the day, this leaves Hong Kong without any opposition, any functional opposition. There's only one pro-democracy councillor still left there who's decided to stay put. This is not going to make a huge substantive difference to the Legislative Council itself. The government had a comfortable majority, mainly through disqualifying up to 1/3 of the 29 district councillors that were elected in 2016. So it was already quite easy for the government to pass laws if they so desired. This is probably more symbolic in this sense. The 4 were disqualified because they had previously been disqualified from standing for re-election in September's LegCo elections, which were later cancelled or postponed for 12 months due to COVID-19. Beijing demanded that they also be refused permission to stay in the Legislative Council for another 10 months. Carrie Lam confirmed that it was actually an order from on high in Beijing. So it certainly does leave the opposition in disarray, but there isn't really going to be a very big difference within the Legislative Council for the next 10 months of its existence.
Oliver, you just said that the opposition is in disarray, and that's my next question to you. What now happens to the voices of opposition in the city? It does appear as though Beijing is really rather crossing them off the lists one by one.
Yes, and a number of those that resigned today are already facing prosecution on other charges such as illegal assembly and sedition. Many of those charges are fairly flimsy and they may not stand up in court, but it's certainly enough to keep them occupied for the forthcoming few months. Their civic society has already been very much quietened by the national security law, which was passed on June 30th. The media has also been targeted by Beijing, the government and the police through the raiding and arrest of Apple Daily founder Jimmy Lai, and also a Radio Television Hong Kong producer who was arrested last week after investigating the police during last year's riots. There are a number of other institutions there that the government has in their crosshairs, such as the courts. And of course, today, the significant thing was that Beijing bypassed the courts. Normally, they would have to go a legal route to disqualify Legislative Council members, but that was not taken today. The government has already started moving certain judges away from politically sensitive cases, particularly as some judges have shown rather commendable independence over the last few months, sometimes actually finding police testimony extremely unreliable and finding a lot of protesters not guilty. So this is definitely a latest assault on civic society in Hong Kong.